My name is Jackie Bryan, and this is my curriculum analysis for EDU 511 at Franciscan University. I've chosen to complete my analysis for the Ohio Model Curriculum for Math, focusing on Grade 3. The big question is, does Ohio's Model Curriculum for Mathematics measure up to the needs of today's students and for 21st century learning? The model curriculum begins with foundations, and the foundation, in this case, would be our Common Core standards, or Ohio's New Learning Standards, as we call them. The law says that the State Board shall adopt a model curriculum, and the model curriculum shall be aligned with the standards to ensure that the academic content and skills specified for each grade level are taught to students and shall demonstrate vertical articulation and emphasize coherence, focus, and rigor. The key words coherence, focus, rigor, articulation are all buzzwords today, and it's interesting to note that it really wasn't from a textbook that this came from, but it really is from the law. It's a process. Before the curriculum, we needed to come up with our standards. There was a lot that went into changes from the old academic content standards to the ultimate adopting of today's new learning standards, which are aligned with the Common Core. In 2009, Ohio conducted an international benchmarking research study. They completed a comparison of the standards of 11 global education systems to that of Ohio and created some charts and things that said what were their recommendations, what do they believe happened. What's published is just their first, they call it their first lens. The final impressions and implications of the study are included in rambling places throughout the ODE, but in their first study they made certain recommendations, and they're the same recommendations we've all heard of making sure that the topics develop over a few years and that expectations at grade levels build upon and move beyond the expectations from previous grades. There's the push to have a smaller range and more depth of learning in the standards. They wanted to eliminate those exposure standards that kind of dropped in a day and walked off without really having any purpose to them other than taking up time and not really going beyond the basic levels of a skill. They also felt that there needed to be revisions and extensions for the high school standards to get for college career readiness to focus. What we found from that is it kind of tells us how did we end up with Common Core. These kind of studies were the reasons we ended up that way. Additionally, there were inclusion of expert reviews and stakeholders. There were, in a presentation in 2010 to the Ohio Board of Education, they told about groups that were content-specific focus groups that led towards development of the new standards and curriculum. Their groups included teachers, professional organizations, and responses to online surveys. Apparently, this gave a lot of information to them to show again, and it also went the same way of verifying the problem of too many standards, not enough depth, not enough clarity. Finally, the partnership with PARC, that also is big and is the key to our high-stakes testing, for good or bad, whatever that's for, it is what we have right now, aligns with the college and career readiness standards. The intent is that the next generation assessments through PARC are intended to provide information of whether our students are in fact prepared for college and career. At this point, it's so new on, we don't know if that's really the case, but that is the intent. The purpose of Ohio's model curriculum is to provide clarity to the standards and a foundation for aligned assessments and guidelines to assist educators in implementing the standards. And that takes us back to where the foundation of the curriculum is the standards. We have to have that first, and we're building up until we get to those assessments. The model curriculum is a living document. It's ongoing. It's not intended to be a static document that's just put online or put in a book somewhere and stop, which kind of our first content standards back in 2001, late 1990s, we got a book and that was the end of it. Now you can't even find that. Everything is in a media form that can be changed at will and as needed. According to law as well, the state board or departments, when they're going to develop curriculum and assessments, their intention or they're mandated to consult and include stakeholders in those decision making with consulting parents, teachers, school personnel, administrators. And a lot of times you'll see through the Department of Education website where they'll post, this is our draft and it's open for question and comment, and people have the freedom to go and look at those new rulings and laws and comment and have those taken into consideration. Unfortunately, most, probably majority of stakeholders do not take advantage of that option, and it's one of those things that might be important to make more known in the schools of offering that information to parents when it becomes available to us, sharing it so they know it's even something they have a voice in. The Department of Education, they claim for state for their mathematics model curricula that it's written to support, once again, the implementation of the new learning standards. That in March 2011, they've adopted the model curricula that we are matching to the new standards, and it's stated in there that the document will grow and change. It is not intended to just be a static document that we look for and say, okay, it's done. We need to be aware that it's not done and it's going to continue to evolve as education does. Where do they begin to organize the standards in a way that is useful and possible for us to even find in a workable way in today's world of so much confusion and ongoing changes? They did make a plan. The curriculum itself follows an academic subject design that is specific for mathematics in K-12. All of the Ohio curricula are content specific. That's the most typical way, and that's where you're going to find your information. It follows a part-to-whole instruction and starts with lower basic skills in the levels and builds and grows and expands into larger concepts as the grade levels progress. The standards progression is offered as a means of showing the critical areas of focus, which kind of aligns with the PARC format. They, at each grade level, state there's 2 to 4 or 5 different focuses in the area of math. In third grade, there are 4 areas of focus. And in the content, it'll actually tell you which focus area you're looking at to make sure that those are the areas that are revisited and expanded and really looked at deeply throughout each grade level year. It does represent a spiraling of the concepts, the way it's put together of making sure that each level works together. The functional curriculum incorporates consistent elements in a framework and always includes at the top the domain, cluster, and standards. Then there are sections for content elaborations, expectations for learning, instructional strategies and resources, and connections. You find that at every grade level and every content area. The information is structured. You can find the information you need at any grade level. The standards, they're listed in clusters. So if you're working in operations or if you're working in measurement or whatever focus you have for that time in your learning, you can easily find it. The content elaborations is where you're going to go to look for clarification of the standards. They're explaining the why. What are the students doing with that information? There's a set of links every time that go through that with Achieve the Core, Illustrative Mathematics, NCTM, as well as PARC that provides information that you can go to for videos, learning progression, sample tasks, all through that for each part of the curriculum, every standard you're working with, you can go and find more information. The expectations for learning is more the assessment area. They're going to give you the model content framework and the accommodations, and it links directly to PARC for most areas. And there's reference sheets that students are able to use, even looking at things, what are they allowed to do with calculators. So that part is really focused on this high stakes testing. In the instructional strategies and resources, it's also broken down into 5 areas to give even more information and more detail. This is for the content area in the instructional strategies and resources. It's the meat that the teacher really wants. What am I going to do with these standards? How am I going to present my information? It's in there. The strategies and the content are there. In the instructional strategies, you're going to find a narrative justification for instruction, and it's going to tell you. In grade 2, students needed to work on the number of objects in rectangular arrays. But in grade 3, they need to work on multiplication and division. They're telling you exactly where they went and where they're going with that information. They're going to give you specific instructional activities and strategies, for example, of a diagram that shows how they can use counters and disks to create multiplication problem and arrays. There's also virtual resources that allow for interactive media and revisiting that they can do. You'll find career connections. There are trade books, websites, activities that are meant to stimulate the awareness of career applications. They're going to tell the students, or give them, actually more or less have the students ask or show them, this is why you need to have fractions, because in this job you may need to do this. The trade books are a vast array that cover so many different areas and also bring in that literature connection. The instructional resources and tools tells you specific materials that you're going to need. If you're going to complete an activity, it's going to tell you you need number lines, you need counters, you need paper and pencil. So it's like a mini lesson plan beginning. There's also all the links to the Ohio Resource Center and the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, the Illuminations, which is a website with virtual manipulatives and math activities. And directly in there, you can just click on the link and start your lesson. Each area also gives you the common misconceptions. It's kind of nice to have that up front. It's going to tell you that it is found in a certain area for, again, back to doing arrays and multiplication, that students often are confused by the symbols of what it's representing. And there might be suggestions of presented in this manner or that manner, and might be able to help prevent any more misconceptions and clarify right up front. The diverse learners are addressed in the end of each section as well, with narratives and resource links for ELL and students with disabilities. It takes you back generally to ODE resources and to universal design resources through CAS.org. There's so much information there that probably are going to be best utilized for an individual teacher or grade level or teacher team to answer specific questions they might have for their students. The connections area gives related grade level concepts and domains, and also ties in to critical area of focus, what the developing understanding of mathematics might be, and what students might find in the next grade level. Assessment is the last part of the model curriculum. Assessment is intended to be used as information, and it's supposed to drive instruction. Sometimes I think in education we get more wrapped up into defining the assessment and just making sure we get the assessment and get the data, but then we stall and hit a wall of, okay, now we have the data. What do we do with it? In the model curriculum, it's kind of in 2 different areas. In the content elaboration section, it seems more like classroom assessments. This is where you're going to have those examples through illustrative math and inside math. There's sample tasks with justifications to the curriculum to explain why it's important learning for the students, and even ideas of how to present that to the students of, this is why you want to learn this, because someday you're going to need it for this. The inside math is performance-based assessments. Those tie into our high-stakes assessments, but at the same time they're very complex and multi-step tasks that are really important and can be worked on as a group or as a longer-term assignment to show the growth and see how all of the learning connects. The high stakes assessments are more addressed in that expectations for learning. That goes right into Park Next Generation assessments, and every link takes you to their website. Honestly, regardless what your feelings are on Common Core and Park, if you have a question or you're not sure of it, it's in there. The links that they provide you take you directly to that website that truly does have a lot of information that at least explains why, maybe not in a way that is pleasing to us, but still tells us what they need, what we need to know. I found more information through this analysis than I know how to handle in 15 minutes. It was overwhelming to me to see the resources that were available, and many of them that I totally had no idea were even in existence. The model curriculum in Ohio has great potential. It's built. Will teachers, will students, will districts come to it? I don't know. The law states that nothing in that section requires school districts to use any part of the model curriculum at all. I find this astounding in a way. The money, the time, the effort, the resources that have gone into building it, and we're all required to do the testing, yet we're not required to even look at what Ohio has put together. It seems to me that in some way it should be used. I mean, it's a shame not to. The extensive content and resources, they were overwhelming to me. I linked and found overviews and found resources for the career readiness, found the research that has been done, found the career readiness commitment that Ohio has made, links to 21st century learning. There was so many, I had just stacks and stacks of information that you couldn't use at one time, but if you were truly putting together a curriculum, I think they could be invaluable. There's a huge emphasis on problem solving and critical thinking, higher level skills that you read in your Blooms, that their taxonomy of making sure we're elevating students' knowledge above just those facts and figures. Calling on written expression, the students not just completing the work, but explaining in words and in writing how and why it was done. There's content integration through the list of trade books that was actually really exciting to me because I do enjoy integrating curriculum. So having that available to me, I will use it in the future for sure. The career readiness and writing applications are things that students need to do in 21st century learning. It makes sense. I didn't know it was right there at my fingertips. All the virtual learning that's there helps for intervention, revisiting, reteaching. It's hands-on and it's user-friendly to the students because they want to use technology. They want to do it. It's there for them to go back. The teachers can post it for them of go back and retry this way. And sometimes on their own, they'll either figure it out or they'll figure out the question they need to ask. The standard progression is evident. It's there through all the grade levels. If I picked up the second grade one, I was going to see in that the content evaluation of this is where they were doing in second grade, this is what they're doing in third grade, that's what they were doing or going to do in fourth grade. It's in there. As a growing document, there's still parts missing. Some things seem to be more in-depth than others. There wasn't career applications in every section of the curriculum. But it is a free document that educators and stakeholders are invited to submit their suggestions. So any of us could submit to ODE, have it evaluated, and it can be included. So it's almost like that global network that we want. You want that collaboration outside of our school districts and outside of our buildings. It's actually there for us, but I think none of us know or recognize that the tools have been given to us and we just need to dive in and use them for our future. I found the whole analysis a bit overwhelming. I don't know how much of it I'm going to remember, but I do at least know at this point that when I need to work more on curriculum and need to work on my classroom and see where my instruction is going, I know for sure I can start on that ODE model curriculum and it will lead me to many places that I can use. So in that respect for me, I believe the analysis was very favorable and valuable to me. Thank you for joining me and my screencast. I hope you found some information or enjoyed some of the parts that I shared. Thank you very much.